Hey friends, welcome back to Interesting Chinese Culture. Hello, welcome to today's episode. If time could move backward and we turn the clock back to the 1980s, what kind of China would you see? There were no smartphones, no food delivery apps, no cartoons pushed to you by an algorithm, and even refrigerators were still rare household items that many families had to buy with ration coupons. But in those years, when material life was not especially abundant, one generation's childhood was slowly unfolding at a completely different rhythm. Today, I want to talk with you about what life was really like for Chinese children in the 1980s. I was a child who grew up in Northeast China, so I will begin with childhood memories from the Northeast and tell you what an ordinary day was like for a child there in the 1980s. In the mornings of the 1980, there was no gentle reminder from a smartphone alarm app. What woke you up was usually the sound of your mother making breakfast in the kitchen, or more often, the crackling sound of the old honeycomb coal stove at home. Honeycomb coal was very common in Northeast China when I was little. To describe it simply, it was a short, solid cylinder of coal with evenly shaped round holes running through it. In Northeast China, getting up on a winter morning actually required a lot of courage because everything outside the quilt was truly cold. Before global warming became so obvious, winters in Northeast China were cold in a way that is hard for people today to imagine. Before the sky had fully brightened, the glass windows were already covered with thick frost patterns. If your finger touched the glass, the cold seemed to travel from your fingertip straight into your bones. Back then, not every home had central heating. Many families still used homemade heating systems, and some even had to light a stove. You could hear the sound of an iron hook stirring the coal, and then smell a faint scent of sulfur. In Northeast China, there was one very distinctive thing called the huokang. If you have never seen a northeastern huokang, it is hard to imagine what it really is. Do not simply translate it as heated bed. For a child in Northeast China in the 1980s, the huokang was not furniture. It was the heart of the whole house, the source of energy for the entire family. You can imagine it like this. It was a huge cement platform that took up half the room, about 1 meter high and 2 or 3 meters wide, stretching directly from the bedroom into the living room. What made it magical was that it felt alive. It had warmth. Its working principle was very clever. One end of the huokang was connected to the kitchen stove. At that time, families cooked with firewood or coal. When Grandma was cooking vegetables or steaming buns in the kitchen, the hot air and smoke produced by the flames did not go directly outside. Instead, they entered the channels beneath the kang, like an invisible dragon circling under it, leaving all the heat inside this large brick platform before finally escaping through the chimney. But as people now live mostly in apartment buildings, and the old way of life in red brick houses has disappeared, huokangs are no longer common. Perhaps you can still see them in some restaurants that specialize in northeastern food. If you are lucky enough to experience one, remember to take off your shoes first, because in northeastern memory, that is a bed. So do not wear your shoes onto someone else's bed. Northeast China was extremely cold at that time. The frost flowers on the windows were especially thick. If you touched them with your hand, they were icy and piercingly cold. If you scraped them with your fingernail, you could even scrape off a small bit of ice. So in weather this cold, in an era when down jackets were not yet common, how did people keep warm? In the memories of northeastern children, when it comes to cold weather, there was one piece of equipment that was absolutely the main character. We called it the mianao. But if you translate it directly as cotton coat, it sounds like an ordinary thick coat. You can imagine it this way. It was a flattened quilt worn on the body. Back then, people did not yet have the kind of light and warm down jackets we have today. The so-called mianao had a very practical structure. 2 layers of strong cloth, stuffed in the middle with cotton picked from cotton fields and fluffed until it was soft and white, then stitched line by line to hold the cotton in place so it would not shift around. This kind of clothing was rarely bought in stores. Most of the time, it was handmade by a grandmother in the family. Wearing it really felt like being wrapped up. Going out for school in the morning was a battle. First you had to put on thermal underwear, then a wool sweater, and only at the end came the mianao, which was often made a little too large. Because it was so thick enough that you could not wave your arms gracefully the way you can now. The bend of your elbow was always bulky and swollen, like an inflated balloon. The buttons were usually hard to fasten because the cloth was stretched tight by the cotton inside. Sometimes someone had to help pull the collar with force. That kind of warmth had a solid comfort that modern heating cannot give you. Even if the wind outside howled like ghosts, as long as you shrank your neck inside the mianao, the warmth seemed to seep slowly out of the cotton, heating your back until it was slightly sweaty. The collar and cuffs of those mian-ao were always worn smooth and shiny, because those were the places rubbed the most every single day. What is even more interesting is that a mian-ao was not only clothing, it was also a kind of inheritance. Usually, after the first child outgrew it, the family would take it apart, change the outer fabric, refresh the cotton inside, and let a younger child continue wearing it. Sometimes, after running wildly around the schoolyard and sweating all over, the lining of the mian-ao would become damp and clammy. After returning home, people would lay it over a radiator or beside the hu kang to dry. That smell, mixed with sunlight, cotton, and a little sweat, is the deepest scent memory of winter. In northeast China, people in winter already looked round and bundled up, but summer was completely different. The morning wind was soft, the grape trellis in the courtyard was just covered with dew, the vegetable garden was full of fresh vegetables. On the street, a donkey cart selling watermelons might occasionally pass by, along with the calls of people selling tofu or collecting used household appliances. Grandpa's voice came through the screen door, with a little urgency, but also a sense of steadiness. Summer mornings in northeast China were cool and especially refreshing. Once the window was opened, the wind would pour straight in. I wonder if any of you have noticed that when Chinese people choose a house, they care a lot about the direction the house faces. For Chinese people, the best choice is a house that faces south, with its back toward the north. Next came breakfast time. When it comes to breakfast, there are still some differences between people in northern China and people in southern China. Northern breakfasts are mainly based on wheat foods. The main feature is that the portions are large, and the goal is to fill you up and keep you from getting hungry too quickly. The most common combinations are fried dough sticks with soy milk, or a baked flatbread stuffed with fried dough sticks. In the north, tofu pudding is always savory. In Henan, hula tang is also a standard breakfast choice. It is a thick soup with a very strong pepper flavor, usually with small pieces of beef and wheat gluten inside, and it is often eaten with yumotu, a kind of small fried dough stick. In addition, large flatbreads, baked wheat buns, and all kinds of stuffed buns are also major breakfast foods. Their main function is to provide enough calories to support a whole morning of physical work. Southern breakfasts are mainly based on rice. The main feature is that there are many different kinds, with more attention paid to texture and variety. Rice noodle rolls from Guangdong are one example, and so are hot dry noodles from Wuhan. Guangxi luozifen, Hunan rice noodles, and Yunnan rice noodles all have different soup bases and toppings. After breakfast, you put on your school bag and went out. 3 or 5 children would walk to school together. Do not be surprised. In China, school buses appeared very late because at that time, schools were usually not very far from home. Some families lived close enough that their children could even go home at noon, eat lunch, and take a short nap. The classmates walked and talked along the way, chatting about the cartoon they watched the night before, or about who had forgotten to bring their homework notebook today. That road to school was not just a straight line from home to school. It was a warm public journey that belonged to childhood. There were very few cars on the streets at that time. The streets were full of bicycles, and the ringing of bicycle bells joined together into one continuous sound. As we walked along the road, we watched adults riding their old 28-inch bicycles to work. On the back seat, there might be an aluminum lunchbox clipped in place. That was their lunch. It would be placed in a room full of hot steam, so at noon they could eat a warm meal. When we arrived at school and stepped through the school gate, the world immediately tightened. Classrooms in the 1980s were extremely simple, even rough. There were wooden desks and chairs, and the tabletops were covered with marks carved by one class of students after another. Sometimes there were blurry words scratched into them. Above the blackboard was the slogan, "Study hard and make progress every day." This was basically a slogan you could see across the whole country, in every school and in every classroom. The blackboard was a real blackboard, dark green in color. The teacher wrote with chalk, and the student on duty had to wipe it with a wet cloth. When the blackboard was cleaned, dust flew everywhere. Sunlight slanted in through the windows, and you could see the dust dancing in the light. The floor was cement. Once someone swept it with a broom, the whole room was filled with the smell of dust rising into the air. In China, each class period lasts 45 minutes, followed by a 10-minute break. Students have their own classroom. They do not need to move to a different classroom for every subject. Instead, they sit in the same classroom and wait while different teachers come in to teach different classes. A normal school day usually has 4 classes in the morning and 2 to 4 classes in the afternoon. As students grow older, moving from primary school to middle school, and then from middle school to high school, the schedule gradually increases from 6 classes a day to include morning reading, early self-study, and evening self-study. To put it bluntly, for Chinese students, school is a silent battlefield. This may sound surprising to many foreign friends, but before taking the college entrance exam, in the 3rd year of high school, the pressure of schoolwork reaches the peak of a student's life. At that time, in some schools, students could study at school from 7 in the morning all the way until 10 at night. So do not be surprised that Chinese students are generally very smart, because it is very possible that from the time they enter kindergarten, they have to keep studying for at least 6 to 10 hours every day, and they live in this highly efficient learning rhythm until they are 18. Even after that, they may already have formed the habit of working hard and studying hard at everything. So, even with such a busy childhood full of schoolwork, did Chinese children still have free time that belonged to them?
Of course they did. You could say that the most exciting moment of the day was when school ended in the afternoon. At that moment, the sunlight began to slant and turn golden. The road home felt different from the morning, because there were no more tasks waiting in your mind. The whole street felt like it belonged to you. We walked along, lowering our heads to look at the ground, picking up pretty stones or chasing a little dog far down the road. After walking out of the school gate, the first thing many children did was slip into the small shop on the street corner. It was a tiny snack shop near the school. Inside the glass counter were tin cans filled with shredded dried figs, popping candy, and watermelon bubble gum. The old-fashioned ice pops cost 5 fen each and were wrapped in rough paper. When you bit into one, it had a grainy sweetness. A bottle of orange soda cost 1 mao. You had to pry off the bottle cap, and when you took a sip, the bubbles burst on the tip of your tongue. Even your burps tasted sweet. Back then, happiness came from the few coins you could feel in your pocket, and from the small lottery prizes that could be exchanged right away. The small shop was only the starting point. The real main stage of childhood was in the courtyard, in the alley, and on the open ground downstairs. In the 1980s, living spaces did not have so many closed security doors or separate children's rooms. The courtyard was shared. The stairwell was open. Neighbors' doors were often left slightly ajar. Women picked vegetables at the doorway. Grandfathers and grandmothers sat in the sun under the windows. Children ran wildly across the same patch of cement ground. Hopscotch, hide and seek, throwing sandbags, and rolling iron hoops were all games that children loved at the time. You might not know what time you were supposed to go home, but sooner or later, an adult's voice would cut across the whole courtyard. "Come home for dinner!" In China, each class period lasts 45 minutes, followed by a 10-minute break. Students have their own classroom. They do not need to move to a different classroom for every subject. Instead, they sit in the same classroom and wait while different teachers come in to teach different classes. A normal school day usually has 4 classes in the morning and 2 to 4 classes in the afternoon. As students grow older, moving from primary school to middle school, and then from middle school to high school, the schedule gradually increases from 6 classes a day to include morning reading, early self-study, and evening self-study. To put it bluntly, for Chinese students, school is a silent battlefield. This may sound surprising to many foreign friends, but before taking the college entrance exam, in the 3rd year of high school, the pressure of schoolwork reaches the peak of a student's life. At that time, in some schools, students could study at school from 7 in the morning all the way until 10 at night, so do not be surprised that Chinese students are generally very smart, because it is very possible that from the time they enter kindergarten, they have to keep studying for at least 6 to 10 hours every day, and they live in this highly efficient learning rhythm until they are 18. Even after that, they may already have formed the habit of working hard and studying hard at everything. So, even with such a busy childhood full of schoolwork, did Chinese children still have free time that belonged to them? Of course they did. You could say that the most exciting moment of the day was when school ended in the afternoon. At that moment, the sunlight began to slant and turn golden. The road home felt different from the morning, because there were no more tasks waiting in your mind. The whole street felt like it belonged to you. We walked along, lowering our heads to look at the ground, picking up pretty stones, or chasing a little dog far down the road. After walking out of the school gate, the first thing many children did was slip into the small shop on the street corner. It was a tiny snack shop near the school. Inside the glass counter were tin cans filled with shredded dried figs, thin white strips that cost 1 mao a bag and tasted sweet and sour, along with popping candy and watermelon bubblegum. The old-fashioned ice pops cost 5 fen each and were wrapped in rough paper. When you bit into one, it had a grainy sweetness. A bottle of orange soda cost 1 mao. You had to pry off the bottle cap, and when you took a sip, the bubbles burst on the tip of your tongue. Even your burps tasted sweet. There was also soda sold in plastic bags, frozen into a solid block of ice. We called it an ice bag. You bought one, bit open a small corner, and sucked on it all the way home. On a hot summer afternoon, that was the highest kind of happiness. Back then, happiness came from the few coins you could feel in your pocket, and from the small lottery prizes that could be exchanged right away. The small shop was only the starting point. The real main stage of childhood was in the courtyard, in the alley, and on the open ground downstairs. In the 1980, living spaces did not have so many closed security doors or separate children's rooms. The courtyard was shared. The stairwell was open. Neighbors' doors were often left slightly ajar. Women picked vegetables at the doorway. Grandfathers and grandmothers sat in the sun under the windows. Children ran wildly across the same patch of cement ground. Hopscotch, hide and seek, throwing sandbags, and rolling iron hoops were all games that children loved at the time. You might not know what time you were supposed to go home, but sooner or later, an adult's voice would cut across the whole courtyard. "Come home for dinner!" Dinner was the most comforting moment of the day. The food might not be luxurious. There might be both meat and vegetables, or simply one stew served with freshly steamed rice. The whole family sat around the table. After dinner, the main event was watching television. In the 1980, when the TV signal was bad, the screen would be full of static. When the signal was poor, people would even reach out and hit the TV a few times. I only realized later that this seems to be a habit only Chinese people have. When there is something wrong with a television or a computer, the first reaction is to knock on the screen. The whole family crowded onto the sofa, or simply moved small stools in front of the television. We watched Black Cat Detective, Calabash Brothers, and the 1986 version of Journey to the West. There was no on-demand streaming and no fast-forward button. If you missed it, you missed it. So sitting in front of the television on time became a kind of family ritual. It was a shared code for an entire generation. Television often showed dramas about ancient Chinese martial arts. Children who watched them would go to school the next day shouting, "Hey ha!" and making a few fighting moves with their hands. On summer nights, the television was on, and the electric fan turned with a loud whirring sound. If it was too hot, people would sleep with the windows open. From time to time, 1 or 2 mosquitoes would fly into the room. On winter nights, the radiator was burning hot. New frost flowers formed on the glass again, and the cold wind howled outside, while the room stayed warm and cozy. Summer in northeast China was a gift from heaven, because in the northeast, winter was long and very cold. In summer, you could sit in the courtyard to enjoy the cool air, look up and count the stars, and the Big Dipper was especially clear. You could catch dragonflies by finding a bamboo pole, putting a plastic bag over the top, and when you saw a dragonfly resting on a branch, quietly covering it. You could also climb up a fruit tree, pick a few ripe fruits, rub them on your clothes, and eat them right away. If you lived near a river, you would run to the little river and wade in the water. The water was icy cold, because it came from snowmelt in the mountains. Eating half a watermelon with a spoon was also common. Yes, you heard that right. Eating watermelon with a spoon. This may be a habit shared by many Chinese people, because back then, watermelon was truly a very cheap summer fruit. I remember when I was little, summer watermelons were about 1 yuan for 3 whole ones. That was roughly like being able to buy 3 whole watermelons for $6 or $7 US. Winter in northeast China had a vast and lonely beauty. After a whole night of heavy snow, the next morning, you might not even be able to push the door open. You had to slam into it with force. It was probably like the videos people now see on social media, where snow piles up after a storm and blocks the doorway. The whole world was so white it almost hurt your eyes. People were dressed like cotton bundles, with padded cotton jackets, padded cotton pants, cotton hats, and cotton mittens, leaving only 2 eyes exposed. When you walked on the snow, it made a crunching sound. We would deliberately step on snow that no one else had touched, and we would even imitate the tracks of a tractor, leaving a row of footprints across the untouched snow. Long icicles hung under the eaves, clear and shining. We would break them off and use them as swords. If you could break off a very long icicle without damaging it, that was something other children would envy, even if your hands were frozen red. Snowball fights were an essential outdoor activity in winter. If someone dropped a snowball down your collar, it would melt coldly inside your clothes, and then came a burst of chasing and wild laughter. There was another major event in winter, and that was Chinese New Year. For us, Chinese New Year meant we finally did not have to wear clothes handed down from older brothers or sisters and altered again. It meant we could have a new piece of clothing that truly belonged to us. It meant we could eat dishes that we almost never got to eat on ordinary days, such as guobaru, stewed pickled cabbage, and fried hairtail fish. It meant we could set off firecrackers. We would take apart a whole string of firecrackers, light them one by one, cover our ears, run away, and feel unbelievably happy when we heard that sharp little bang.
Now, I wonder if any of you, like me, often think back to those years. That era was actually only 30 or 40 years ago. It was not that long ago, but our lives have completely changed. Today, technology keeps developing step by step, and in recent years, with the arrival of the AI generation, life may be about to open another completely different chapter. Many children are surrounded by all kinds of screens from the moment they are born. They have every kind of toy to choose from, endless snacks, and all kinds of interest classes. They can video call someone far away at any time, but they may not even know their own neighbors. They grow up in an environment where they are highly watched, highly protected, and carefully arranged, but they have much less of that wild, free growth we once had. I am not trying to say that the past was better than the present. No, that is not what I mean. As generations develop, life also changes with them. We cannot simply judge one generation as definitely more perfect than another. It is just that when I think back now, there was scarcity back then. There was inconvenience. There was the kind of winter cold that left you with nowhere to hide. There was the poor, aching feeling of being sad for a whole day just because one ice pop had fallen on the ground. Life was not materially rich. But somehow, that scarcity itself seemed to give us something else. It made the sweetness of one piece of candy something you could remember for a lifetime. It made the joy of getting one new toy last for weeks. It made the bond between friends become unbreakable because of all those countless evenings when we ran wildly together in the courtyard. Why did I suddenly want to make an episode like this, full of memories? It was because a few days ago I happened to see a question on social media. Why are more and more people suffering from depression now? That topic made me think back. It seems that in the 1980 and 1990s, the word depression was not as widely known or constantly mentioned as it is today. So, have people changed? Or has life changed people? In that childhood world of the 1980s, material things were scarce, but the structure of life was full. It had courtyards, it had neighbors, it had clear seasons, it had festivals that arrived after long periods of waiting. It had a group of friends who looked almost the same as you, and played almost the same games as you. We did not grow up alone. We really grew up together. That sense of community was like sitting close together around the fire in winter. Everyone could feel the warmth of the people beside them. In just a few decades, we have gained a richness and convenience that we never had before. But it seems that we have also lost the feeling of being wrapped inside a specific, warm, living community. Perhaps this is the mark that time has carved into us. This train of time has moved too fast. We have left so many landscapes behind, and when we look back, that small figure running clumsily through the snow in thick cotton pants, that version of ourselves eating an ice pop on a summer evening, sweating all over, is still standing downstairs beneath the old family apartment building, in the smell of coal smoke and steamed buns, waving at us. On that face is a kind of real, solid happiness that we only understand now. That era with no smartphones, no food delivery, and not so many consumer choices is actually not very far from today. It has simply been left behind by all of us rushing forward. But looking back once in a while helps us remember this. Happiness has never been merely an attachment to material things. It is the product of the way life is structured. And childhood is not a period of time that needs to be optimized. It is an encounter that needs to be shared. May everyone you meet be kind, and may your life be filled with sunlight. That is all for today's episode. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time.
If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to give the show a like, subscribe, and share it with someone you think would enjoy it too. Thank you for spending this time with me. I will see you in the next episode.